She fed a starving boy behind her diner and hid him from dangerous people. The next day, his Mafia boss father showed up at her apartment, armed and furious. His son grabbed her hand and wouldn't let go. Now she's living in his fortress, whether she likes it or not. The fluorescent lights of Rosie's diner buzzed like dying wasps at 2:47 a.m. Elena Martinez wiped down the counter for the third time that hour, her eyes burning from the double shift. Outside, rain hammered against the windows in sheets, turning the parking lot into a small lake. She should have been home hours ago. Lucas was sleeping at her mother's place, and the tips tonight barely covered gas. But when Danny called in sick, again, she couldn't say no. Single moms didn't get to say no. A crash from the back alley made her freeze mid-wipe. Probably just a raccoon. The dumpsters attracted all kinds of creatures at night. She turned back to the coffee maker, but something in her gut twisted. That maternal instinct that had kept Lucas safe for 7 years, the one that knew when he was about to touch a hot stove or run into traffic, screamed at her to check. Elena grabbed the flashlight from under the register and pushed through the back door. The rain hit her like a cold slap. She swept the flashlight across the alley, illuminating overflowing dumpsters and puddles that reflected the neon, Rosie's sign. Nothing. Then she saw him. A small figure crouched beside the garbage bins, barefoot and shivering. A boy, maybe 8 or 9, wearing what might have once been expensive clothes, now torn and filthy. He was digging through a torn trash bag with small, desperate hands. "Hey!" Elena called out, her voice softer than she intended. "Honey, what are you doing out here?" The boy's head snapped up. Even in the dim light, she could see his face, pale, terrified, with dark eyes that had seen too much. He didn't run. He just stared at her like a cornered animal deciding whether she was predator or prey. Elena's heart cracked open. She thought of Lucas at that age, small and vulnerable. "It's okay," she said, stepping closer. "I'm not going to hurt you. Are you hungry?" The boy's eyes darted to the diner, then back to her. He nodded once. "Come inside. Get warm. I'll make you something to eat." He hesitated for a long moment, then stood on shaking legs. His feet were bleeding, she realized. How far had he walked? Elena held the door open, and the boy slipped past her into the diner's warmth. He moved like a ghost, barely making a sound. She locked the door behind them, force of habit in this neighborhood, and guided him to a booth in the back. "Sit. I'll get you some dry clothes from Lost and Found, okay?" The boy sat stiffly, his eyes tracking every movement she made. When she returned with an oversized sweatshirt and some kitchen towels, he was still frozen in the same position. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Elena asked gently, wrapping her coat around his shoulders. "Mateo," he whispered. His voice was hoarse, like he'd been screaming or crying. "I'm Elena. Nice to meet you, Mateo. How about some hot soup? Chicken noodle?" He nodded again, and she thought she saw his eyes water. In the kitchen, Elena worked quickly, heating up soup and making a grilled cheese sandwich. Her mind raced. Should she call the police? Child services? The kid was clearly running from something or someone. But at 3 a.m. in a thunderstorm, bureaucracy moved slow. First, she'd feed him, then figure out the rest. When she brought the food out, Mateo devoured it like he hadn't eaten in days. Elena sat across from him, sipping coffee, giving him space but staying close. "Mateo, where are your parents?" His spoon clattered against the bowl. "I can't tell you." "Are you in trouble?" "Please," his voice cracked. "I just need to disappear." Before Elena could respond, headlights swept across the diner windows, 3 vehicles, pulling into the lot fast. Too fast. Mateo's face went white. "They found me." "Who?" The back door exploded inward with a crash that made Elena's ears ring. 4 men in black tactical gear stormed through, assault rifles raised. The lead man, face hidden behind a balaclava, scanned the diner. "Mateo Costa," he shouted. "Come out now, and the woman lives." "Costa." Elena's blood turned to ice. Everyone in the city knew that name. The Costas weren't just criminals, they were the criminals. The kind of people you saw on the news, never in person. Instinct took over. Elena killed the lights. "Hey," the man shouted as darkness swallowed the diner. "Don't be stupid." She grabbed Mateo's hand and pulled him from the booth, moving by memory alone. They crouched low, heading toward the kitchen. Gunfire erupted behind them. The coffee maker exploded. Glass shattered. Elena's ears rang as she shoved Mateo through the kitchen doorway. "The freezer," she hissed. "Behind the shelves, there's a crawl space." She'd used it herself once when the health inspector showed up, and she needed to hide the fact that the freezer lock was broken. It led to a maintenance corridor and out to the side alley. More gunfire. A bullet punched through the wall inches from her head. Elena yanked open the freezer door, shoved aside a metal shelf, and pushed Mateo into the narrow gap behind it. She squeezed in after him, pulling the shelf back as footsteps thundered into the kitchen. "Find them," someone yelled. In the freezing darkness, Mateo's small hand gripped hers so tightly it hurt. Elena felt along the wall until she found the loose panel she remembered. It popped open with a soft click. They crawled through on their hands and knees, Mateo first, Elena behind him. The space was barely 2 feet high, filled with pipes and rat droppings. Behind them, she heard the freezer door slam open. "They're not here. Check everywhere. Rip this place apart." Elena's fingers found the exit panel. She pushed it open and cold rain poured in. They tumbled out into the side alley, both gasping. Her car, her beat-up Honda, was parked 20 feet away. "Run!" Elena grabbed Mateo and sprinted through the rain. Behind them, shouts erupted. She fumbled with her keys, hands shaking, and somehow got the door open. Mateo dove into the passenger seat. Elena turned the ignition. It sputtered once, twice. Come on, and finally roared to life. A man appeared at the alley entrance, raising his rifle. Elena slammed the gas pedal and the Honda lurched forward. The back window exploded as bullets tore through it. She yanked the wheel hard, tires screaming on wet pavement, and rocketed out of the alley onto the empty street. In the rearview mirror, she saw the men running back to their vehicles. Beside her, Mateo was crying silently, his whole body shaking. Elena's hands trembled on the wheel as she sped through red lights, taking random turns, her mind blank with adrenaline and terror. She'd just saved someone's life. She'd just made herself a target. And she had no idea that the terrified boy beside her was the key to the most dangerous criminal empire in the city, or that his father was already hunting them both. Elena's apartment building looked exactly the same as when she'd left it yesterday morning. Same cracked steps, same flickering hallway light, same smell of Mrs. Chen's cooking from 2B. Everything was normal. Everything was wrong. She'd driven in circles for an hour before risking coming home. Mateo had fallen asleep against the passenger window, exhausted and trembling even in sleep. She needed to get Lucas from her mother's, needed to think, needed to figure out what the hell she'd just gotten herself into. The Honda's engine ticked as it cooled. Elena sat in the darkness, watching the building. 4:47 a.m. The world was that special kind of quiet that only existed before dawn. "Mateo," she whispered, shaking his shoulder gently. "We're here. Come on, sweetheart." He woke with a start, eyes wild until he remembered where he was. They climbed the stairs to her third-floor apartment, Mateo's hand locked in hers. Elena fumbled with her keys, got the door open, and ushered him inside. Her home was small, a living room that doubled as a dining room, a tiny kitchen, 2 bedrooms barely bigger than closets. But it was clean and warm and hers. "You can sleep on the couch," Elena said, grabbing a blanket from the closet. "I'll figure out." She stopped. Through her window, she could see the street below. 3 black SUVs were pulling up to the curb, silent as sharks. Oh God, Elena's stomach dropped. "Mateo, get down." But it was too late. Car doors opened. Men emerged, Not the tactical team from the diner, but something worse. Men in expensive suits with faces like carved stone. They moved with military precision, surrounding the building. Someone pounded on her door hard enough to rattle the frame. "Open up." A voice like gravel and broken glass.
"Now."
Matteo grabbed Elena's arm, his face pale. "It's my father." The words hit her like a punch.
His father.
Damiano Costa himself. The door splintered open with one kick. He filled the doorway like a natural disaster made flesh. Tall, broad-shouldered, in a black shirt splattered with something dark and wet. Blood, Elena realized. Fresh blood. His face was all sharp angles and cold fury, black hair pushed back from a face that might have been handsome if it wasn't so terrifying. And in his hand, pointed directly at Elena's chest, was a gun. "Where is he?" Damiano Costa's voice was deadly calm. For men flanked him, weapons drawn. Elena's heart hammered so hard she thought it might burst, but she didn't move.
Didn't scream.
She stepped sideways, positioning herself between the gun and the couch where Matteo stood frozen. "Lower your weapon," she said quietly. "You'll scare him." For a moment no one moved. Damiano's eyes, dark and cold as a winter ocean, locked onto hers. She saw him calculating, trying to figure out if this was a trap, if she was bait, if his son was already dead. Then Matteo's small voice broke the silence. "Papa?" Damiano's head snapped toward the couch. His entire body went rigid. Matteo stood there in Elena's oversized sweatshirt, wrapped in her worn blue blanket, alive and whole and safe. Something Elena couldn't name flickered across Damiano's face, relief so intense it looked like pain. The gun lowered slightly. "Matteo," his voice cracked on the name. "Come here."
"Now."
But Matteo didn't move toward his father. He moved closer to Elena, his small hand finding hers again. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "Step away from my son." Damiano's gun rose again, steady on Elena's forehead.
"Now."
Elena's mouth went dry, but she didn't let go of Matteo's hand. "No."
"No."
Damiano's eyes narrowed dangerously. "He's terrified. Putting a gun in his face won't help. You have 3 seconds to." He was cold. Elena interrupted, her voice steady despite the fear thrumming through her veins. "That's why I brought him home. Because he was cold and scared and alone, and I couldn't leave him that way. So shoot me if you want, but I'm not letting go of him while you're waving that thing around." The men behind Damiano shifted, hands on weapons. One of them, a gray-haired man with cold eyes, whispered urgently, "Boss, she could be." Quiet, Damiano didn't look away from Elena. They stood like that for an eternity compressed into seconds. Elena could feel Matteo shaking beside her, could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears, could smell the blood on Damiano Costa's shirt. Then, slowly, he lowered the gun. "Everyone out," he said quietly. "Sir," the gray-haired man started.
"Out."
"Wait in the hall." The men retreated, though Elena could feel their presence just beyond the broken door. Damiano holstered his weapon and took one step into the apartment. Just one, like he was approaching a wild animal. "Matteo," he said, his voice softer now but still edged with steel. "Are you hurt?" Matteo shook his head. "Did she hurt you?" "No," Matteo's voice was small. "She saved me, Papa. The men came to the diner, and she hid me, and we ran, and—" "What men?" Damiano's attention snapped back to Elena, sharp as a blade. "Who were they?" "I don't know," Elena said truthfully.
"They wore masks."
"They came in shooting, asking for Matteo. I got him out through the back." Damiano studied her face for a long moment. She forced herself to meet his eyes, to not look away from whatever he was searching for. "You don't know who I am," he said finally. It wasn't a question. "I know your name. Everyone knows your name. And yet you brought my son to your home, fed him, protected him," his head tilted slightly. "Why?" Elena looked down at Matteo, then back at Damiano. "Because he's a child. That's reason enough." Something shifted in Damiano's expression. Surprise, maybe, or something closer to confusion. Like she'd spoken in a language he'd forgotten existed. "No one touches my son," he said quietly, and there was a warning in those words deeper than any threat. "No one gets this close to him without my permission." The last person who tried died screaming. Elena's throat tightened, but she didn't flinch. "Then I guess I'm lucky I gave him soup instead of bullets." A strange silence fell. Then, incredibly, Damiano's mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. Something darker. "You have no idea what you've done," he said. "But you will." He moved toward the couch, and this time Matteo went to him. Father pulled son into his arms, holding him tight enough that Elena could see the strain in his shoulders. When Damiano spoke again, his voice was muffled against Matteo's hair, but Elena heard every word. "Someone will pay for tonight." In blood. And Elena realized with cold certainty that her normal life, her simple, ordinary, safe life, had just ended. The storm was only beginning. Damiano left with Matteo at dawn, but his men stayed behind. Elena stood in her destroyed living room, door hanging off its hinges, morning light filtering through, and watched two men in suits install a new steel door like it was the most normal thing in the world. She hadn't slept. Couldn't. Her mind kept replaying the moment Damiano's gun had pointed at her forehead, the cold certainty that she was about to die. Her phone buzzed. Her mother. "Mija, Lucas is asking for you. When are you coming?" Elena's chest tightened. Lucas. God, she needed to see him, hold him, make sure he was real and safe.
"Soon, Mama."
"I had a long shift. You work too hard. That diner doesn't deserve you." If only that was still her biggest problem. At 9 a.m., a black Mercedes pulled up outside. The gray-haired man from last night emerged, the one who'd wanted to shoot her on sight. He climbed her new stairs and stood in her new doorway with the bearing of a soldier. "Ms. Martinez, I'm Vincent Romano, Mr. Costa's head of security. He'd like to speak with you." I've got nothing to say to him. It wasn't a request. 20 minutes later, Elena sat in the back of the Mercedes, watching her neighborhood disappear. They drove into the wealthy part of the city she'd only ever seen in magazines. Tree-lined streets, mansions with gates, a different world. The Costa estate made those mansions look like garden sheds. Stone walls at least 15 feet high. Armed guards at the gate. The house itself was a sprawling fortress of dark stone and iron, surrounded by manicured grounds that probably cost more to maintain than Elena made in a year. Vincent led her through halls that echoed, past staff who averted their eyes, to a study lined with dark wood and leather. Damiano stood by the window, back to her, hands clasped behind him. He'd changed clothes. The blood was gone. Now he wore a crisp white shirt and dark slacks, looking every inch the businessman except for the shoulder holster visible beneath his open suit jacket. "Sit," he said without turning. Elena remained standing. "What do you want?" Damiano turned, and in daylight she could see him clearly. Younger than she'd thought, maybe late 30s. Handsome in a dangerous way, with a scar cutting through his left eyebrow and eyes that had seen things that would break most people. "My men reviewed the diner's security footage before the police arrived," he said. "I saw what you did, how fast you moved, how you protected him. Any decent person would've." "No," his voice was flat. "They wouldn't. Most people would have run, or hidden, or given him up to save themselves. You chose differently." Elena crossed her arms. "Is there a point to this? The men who attacked the diner work for the Calabrese family. My rivals. They were trying to kidnap Matteo, hold him for ransom, or kill him to destroy me." His jaw tightened. "Someone betrayed us. Gave them his location, his security details, blind spots. They should have succeeded, but they didn't. Because of you." Damiano moved closer, and Elena fought the urge to step back. "Which means the Calabrese family now knows who you are. They have your license plate, your face on camera fleeing the scene. By now they know your name, your address, where you work." I slid down Elena's spine. You're saying they'll come after me. I'm saying you're already dead.
You just don't know it yet, he paused.
Unless you accept my protection. Protection, Elena laughed, high and sharp. From you? You put a gun to my head 6 hours ago. And I'm offering you a way to survive now. You and your son. Elena's heart stopped. How do you know about Lucas? I know everything, Ms. Martinez. Lucas Hernandez, age 7. Currently staying with your mother Maria at 428 Oak Street. He likes dinosaurs and hates broccoli. You're 3 months behind on rent and work doubles to make ends meet because his father sends nothing. Fury and fear warred in Elena's chest. You stay away from him. I don't need to touch him. But the Calabrese family will. Damiano's voice was merciless. They'll use him to hurt you.
To hurt me?
They'll take him from school or from your mother's apartment, and you'll never see him again. Is that what you want? You bastard. I'm giving you a choice, Damiano interrupted. Move into this house. You and your son. Full protection, everything you need. Or go home and wait for them to come. But if you choose wrong, Lucas pays the price. Elena wanted to hit him, wanted to scream, but the cold logic of his words wrapped around her throat. You're blackmailing me. I'm being honest. Something people rarely are in my world. He moved to his desk, pulled out a folder. Look. Elena took it with shaking hands. Inside were surveillance photos taken this morning. Her apartment building. Men in a dark sedan parked across the street.
Different men from last night.
Watching. Waiting. They're already hunting you, Damiano said quietly. And when they find you alone, unprotected, with a 7-year-old boy, he didn't finish. He didn't need to. Elena's eyes burned. She thought of Lucas at her mother's small apartment. No security, no guards, no protection at all. Of Lucas being taken, hurt, used as leverage in a war she didn't understand. How long? Her voice came out hoarse. Until I eliminate the threat. Could be days. Could be weeks. And if I say no, then I'll send men to watch your mother's building. But they can't be everywhere. And eventually, the Calabrese family will find a gap. His eyes were steady on hers. Your son deserves better than eventually. Elena closed the folder. Her hands were shaking. I'm not some gangster's kept woman. I'm not asking you to be. You'll have your own quarters. Your own space. Mateo has already asked for you. He trusts you, which is rare. Maybe impossible. But this isn't charity, Ms. Martinez. I protect what's mine. And right now, whether you like it or not, your survival is tied to my son's safety. Every instinct Elena had screamed to refuse, to run, to grab Lucas and disappear. But she'd seen the guns, the blood, the casual violence in Damiano's world. She was a waitress. A single mom. She had no weapons against men like the ones in those photos. But Lucas had her. And she'd do anything, even make a deal with the devil himself, to keep him safe. I want to see him first, she said finally. Lucas. I need to explain. Damiano nodded once. Vincent will take you. Pack what you need. You move in tonight. Elena turned to leave, then paused at the door. I'm doing this for my son, not for you. I know, Damiano said. That's exactly why I'm trusting you. As the Mercedes drove her back toward her old life, the life she was about to abandon, Elena watched the city roll past and wondered if she'd just made a deal that would save them or destroy them. Behind her, she didn't see Damiano standing at the window, watching her leave with an expression that might have been respect. Or calculation. Lucas didn't understand at first. Like a vacation? He asked, clutching his stuffed T-Rex as Elena packed their lives into 2 suitcases. At a big house. Sort of. Elena lied, her heart breaking. Just for a little while, baby. It'll be an adventure. Her mother had been harder to convince. Maria Martinez took one look at the black Mercedes waiting outside and crossed herself. Mija, what have you gotten into? I helped someone, Mama. Now they're helping us back. That's all. It wasn't all. It wasn't even close. But Elena kissed her mother's cheek and promised to call, and she didn't look back as Vincent loaded their bags into the trunk. The drive took 40 minutes. Lucas pressed his face against the window, watching the city transform from their rundown neighborhood to tree-lined streets to the massive iron gates of the Costa estate. Whoa, Lucas breathed. It's like a castle. More like a prison, Elena thought. The gates opened silently. They drove up a long driveway flanked by armed men trying to look like gardeners. Lucas didn't notice. He was 7. Elena noticed everything. Vincent parked in a circular courtyard with a fountain that probably cost more than her car. A woman in a gray uniform stood at the massive front doors, stern face, hair pulled back, so tight it looked painful. Ms. Martinez. I'm Mrs. Castellano, the house manager. Her tone suggested Elena was something unpleasant she'd found on her shoe. I'll show you to your quarters. Elena took Lucas's hand and followed her inside. The entrance hall was all marble and dark wood, with a chandelier that could crush a car. Their footsteps echoed. Lucas stayed close to Elena's side, his usual chatter dying in the oppressive silence. They passed staff in the hallways, maids, guards, men in suits. Every single one stopped and stared. Their faces ranged from curious to hostile, but none were welcoming. People live here? Lucas whispered. Apparently, Elena whispered back. Mrs. Castellano led them up a grand staircase and down a long hallway. Your rooms. The boy will be in the adjacent bedroom. Meals are served at 7, 1, and 7. Do not enter Mr. Costa's private wing. Do not disturb the staff. Do not. Noted. Elena cut her off. We'll stay out of everyone's way. Mrs. Castellano's lips thinned. Mr. Costa has requested your presence in the main dining room at 6 o'clock. Don't be late. She left without another word. Elena opened the door to their quarters and actually gasped. The rooms were bigger than her entire apartment. A sitting area with plush furniture, 2 bedrooms with massive beds, a bathroom with marble everything. Lucas ran inside, his eyes huge.
Mom.
There's a TV bigger than our couch. Elena sank onto the sofa, suddenly exhausted. They were living in a gilded cage, and she had no idea when, or if, they'd ever leave. A soft knock interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Mateo stood in the doorway, wearing clean clothes now but looking just as lost as he had by the dumpster. Behind him hovered a young woman in a nanny's uniform, her face pinched with disapproval. Elena? Mateo's voice was small. Elena was on her feet instantly. Hey, sweetheart. You okay? He nodded but didn't move closer. The nanny put a hand on his shoulder. Master Mateo, you shouldn't be bothering the guests. Mateo shrugged her off and walked straight to Elena, wrapping his arms around her waist. The nanny's face flushed. Master Mateo, that's inappropriate. It's fine, Elena said, stroking Mateo's hair. She could feel him trembling. It most certainly is not. I've been trying to get him to eat lunch for 2 hours, and he... Are you hungry? Elena asked Mateo gently. He nodded against her shirt. Then let's fix that. Elena looked at Lucas, who was watching with wide eyes. Lucas, come here. I want you to meet someone. Lucas approached cautiously. This is Mateo, Elena said. Mateo, this is my son Lucas. He's 7. How old are you? 8, Mateo said quietly, pulling back to look at Lucas. Do you like Legos? Lucas's face lit up. I love Legos. Do you have the dinosaur set? I have all of them. Want to see? Just like that, the ice broke. The boys started talking about T-Rexes and velociraptors, and Elena saw Mateo's shoulders relax for the first time since she'd met him. The nanny looked like she'd swallowed a lemon. Mrs. Castellano should hear about this. Then tell her, Elena said pleasantly. But first, where's the kitchen? These boys need food. 20 minutes later, Elena had commandeered a corner of the massive kitchen, much to the chef's irritation, and was making grilled cheese sandwiches. Lucas and Mateo sat at the counter, swinging their legs and laughing as Elena told them an exaggerated story about the time she accidentally ordered 50 pizzas instead of 5. And then, Elena said, flipping a sandwich, The pizza guy shows up with 3 other drivers, and my whole apartment smelled like pepperoni for a week. Both boys dissolved into giggles. Real, genuine laughter that echoed in the cold kitchen. Elena didn't notice Damiano standing in the doorway. He'd been there for 5 minutes, watching his son, his guarded, traumatized, silent son, smile.
Laugh.
Act like a normal child. Matteo hadn't laughed since his mother died 2 years ago. The therapist said he was processing grief. Damiano knew it was fear. Fear of a world where mothers disappeared and men came with guns and trust was a death sentence. But now Matteo was giggling over a pizza story, and Elena was serving sandwiches like this was her kitchen, her home, and these were just 2 normal kids on a normal day. Vincent appeared beside Damiano, voice low. "Sir, the men are talking. They're saying you've brought a civilian into the inner sanctum, that it shows weakness." "Do they?" Damiano's voice was flat. "Some of the lieutenants think she's a security risk. Carmine wants her background checked 3 times. Marco suggested she might be Calabrese bait. And what do you think, Vincent?" Vincent was quiet for a moment, watching Elena cut the sandwiches diagonally, because Matteo mentioned he liked them that way. "I think she makes your son laugh. That's worth more than 100 background checks." Damiano said nothing. He watched Elena ruffle Matteo's hair, watched her include Lucas naturally in every conversation, watched her transform his fortress kitchen into something that almost felt like a home. It unsettled him more than any threat, any rival, any betrayal. Because Damiano Costa controlled everything in his world through fear, through power, through calculated violence. But this woman, this waitress with her kind eyes and her stubborn courage, had done something he couldn't. She'd reached his son. And Damiano didn't know if that made her the most valuable asset he'd ever found, or the most dangerous threat to everything he'd built. Elena looked up then and caught his eye across the kitchen. She didn't smile, didn't bow or scrape or show fear. She just held his gaze for a moment, then returned her attention to the boys. Like he was just another person. Not a king in his castle. Not a monster wearing a man's face. Just someone. Damiano turned and walked away before anyone could see the crack forming in his carefully constructed armor. Behind him, Matteo's laughter echoed through the halls of a house that had forgotten what joy sounded like. The news spread through the underworld like wildfire. Damiano Costa, the man who trusted no one, who kept his personal life locked behind steel and silence, had brought a civilian woman and her child into his fortress. A nobody. A waitress from a diner in the wrong part of town. In a dim office across the city, Sal Calabrese lit a cigar and studied the surveillance photos spread across his desk. Elena Martinez at the diner. Elena fleeing with Matteo. Elena entering the Costa estate with a small boy. "She's a weakness," his consigliera said. "Costa doesn't do weak. He doesn't let civilians inside. This woman must be important." Sal smiled around his cigar. "Then she's leverage. Watch her. I want to know everything. Her routines, her relationships, every move she makes. When the time comes, we use her to break him." 2 miles away, Elena stood in her borrowed bedroom and tried to remember who she'd been 4 days ago. Just a single mom working doubles. Worried about rent and Lucas's school supplies and whether the car would make it another month. Simple problems. Human problems. Now she was living in a mansion with armed guards and marble floors, her son playing with the heir to a criminal empire, while men with guns patrolled the gardens. She pressed her forehead against the window. Outside, a guard walked past, young, muscular, assault rifle slung over his shoulder like it weighed nothing. He was the 3rd one in the last 10 minutes. She'd counted. This wasn't a home. It was a fortress. And she was inside the walls with a man who'd killed people. Probably many people. "Mom?" Lucas appeared in the doorway, holding his dinosaur. "Matteo wants to know if we can watch a movie. Is that okay?" Elena turned, forcing a smile. "Sure, baby. What movie?" "The one with the robots." Lucas bounced excitedly. And Mrs. Castellano said we could have popcorn, but she made this face like he scrunched up his features in an exaggerated scowl. Despite everything, Elena laughed. That's definitely her face. Go ahead. I'll be down in a minute. Lucas ran off, and Elena's smile faded. He was adapting too easily, too quickly. To him, this was an adventure, a big house with endless toys and a new friend. He didn't see the guns, didn't understand the danger. How long before this became his normal? Downstairs, the main living room had been transformed. Matteo and Lucas had built a fort out of couch cushions, and Mrs. Castellano, still scowling, was bringing in bowls of popcorn. Thank you, Elena said. Mrs. Castellano sniffed. Mr. Costa's orders. The children are to have whatever they require.
Still.
Thank you for doing it. The older woman paused, something flickering across her face. Surprise, maybe. Then she nodded stiffly and left. Elena settled onto the couch as the boys started their movie. Through the windows, she could see the grounds, beautiful and terrible, like everything here. Manicured lawns, rose gardens, men with weapons walking patrol routes. Her phone buzzed. Her mother. How are you, Mija? Is Lucas okay? Elena typed back. We're fine. The place is safe. I'll call tomorrow. Safe. Such a relative word now. A throat cleared. Vincent stood in the doorway, his face unreadable. Ms. Martinez. A word. Elena's stomach tightened. She kissed Lucas's head and followed Vincent into the hallway. What is it? Your old apartment building. We've detected increased surveillance. 3 different vehicles, rotating shifts. The Calabrese family is watching it. Elena's blood chilled. My mother is being watched as well. We have men on her street, but from a distance. If we move too close, the Calabrese will know we're protecting her. So she's bait. Elena's voice shook with anger. You're using her too. We're keeping her alive, Vincent interrupted quietly. If they thought she was important to Mr. Costa, she'd already be dead. This way, she looks like an ordinary grandmother. Uninvolved. Safe. Elena wanted to scream. Wanted to grab Lucas and run. But where would they go? The Calabrese family knew her face, her name, her life. How long? She asked. Until we identify who betrayed us. Until we eliminate the threat. Vincent's expression softened slightly. I know this isn't easy, but you're safer here than anywhere else in the city. After he left, Elena stood in the hallway, fighting tears. She'd saved a child by a dumpster. That's all she'd done. One decent act, and now her entire world had shifted off its axis.
And?
She turned. Matteo stood there, small and worried. Are you okay? He asked. Elena wiped her eyes quickly. Yes, sweetheart. Just tired. My papa gets that look too. When he's worried about bad things, Matteo stepped closer. But you're safe here. My papa keeps people safe. He's really good at it. The simple faith in his voice broke something in Elena's chest. This 8-year-old boy, who'd seen his mother die, who'd been hunted by assassins, still believed his father could protect everyone. Maybe that's what children needed. Someone to believe in, even if that someone was a monster. Come on, Elena said, taking his hand. Let's go watch robots fight. That's much better than thinking about bad things. They returned to the fort, and Elena tried to focus on the movie. Try not to think about surveillance photos or rival families or the moral quicksand she was sinking into. But that night, after the boys were asleep, Elena stood in the hallway outside their rooms and made a decision. She couldn't change where they were. Couldn't undo her choice at the dumpster. Couldn't stop being a target in a war she didn't understand. But she could give these boys something normal, something good, routines and laughter, and the feeling that somewhere in this fortress of violence, there was a corner of warmth and safety. Even if that meant staying under the roof of a man whose hands were stained with blood. Even if that meant compromising every value she'd held dear. Because Lucas needed a mother who was alive more than he needed a mother who was righteous. Elena checked the locks, 3 of them now, heavy and industrial, and went to bed in a room bigger than her old apartment, in a house built on fear and power, and tried not to think about how quickly the extraordinary became ordinary. How quickly darkness became home. Across the city, in his dim office, Sal Calabrese studied Elena's photo one more time. "She'll break," he told his men. "Everyone breaks eventually. And when she does, Costa's empire falls with her." He didn't know he was wrong. He didn't know that Elena Martinez had already survived poverty, abandonment, and single motherhood. And compared to those, living with monsters was just another Tuesday. By day 5, Elena couldn't tell where Mateo ended and Lucas began. They were everywhere together, building elaborate Lego cities on the floor of the game room, having breakfast with syrup somehow ending up in both their hair, creating secret handshakes that involved dinosaur roars and complicated hand movements. Lucas taught Mateo how to make fart noises with his armpit. Mateo showed Lucas his collection of books about knights and dragons. They were just two boys being boys, and it was the most normal thing in this abnormal world. "They're attached at the hip," Mrs. Castellano observed one afternoon, her usual scowl softening slightly as she watched them race through the hallway. "I haven't seen Master Mateo this alive in years." Elena was helping fold laundry. Mrs. Castellano had protested, said it wasn't appropriate, but Elena needed something to do with her hands. "Lucas has that effect. He makes friends with everyone. Master Mateo doesn't." The older woman's voice was quiet. "After his mother passed, he stopped talking to most people. The therapist said he was retreating inside himself. Mr. Costa hired the best, specialists from Switzerland, child psychologists, behavioral experts. Nothing worked." Elena watched through the window as the boys played in the garden, two guards watching from a distance. Maybe he just needed a friend instead of a specialist. That evening, Elena made spaghetti in the kitchen. The chef had finally accepted her presence, though he still muttered in Italian whenever she touched his precious pots. The boys sat at the counter, covered in flour from helping make garlic bread. "And then," Lucas was saying, "the teacher said I had to apologize to the hamster for scaring it, but I didn't mean to. I just wanted to see if it could do a flip." Mateo giggled. "Did it flip?" "No, it just peed on me." Both boys dissolved into laughter. Elena smiled, stirring the sauce. This was worth everything. The fear, the danger, the moral compromise. Hearing Mateo laugh like a normal kid. "Uncle Enzo never laughs at my stories," Mateo said suddenly, his voice going quieter. Elena's hand stilled on the spoon. "Uncle Enzo. Papa's friend. He's supposed to be nice, but he's not really." Mateo picked at a piece of bread. "He does this weird smile that doesn't reach his eyes. You know?" Lucas nodded seriously. "Like Miss Peterson at the dentist." "Exactly." Mateo's face brightened at being understood. "And he talks to strangers at night. I heard him once in Papa's office. He was on the phone saying bad words and talking about moving things? I don't know. Papa would be mad if he knew." Elena's instincts screamed warning. "Does your papa know Uncle Enzo makes calls like that?" Mateo shrugged. "I didn't tell him. Uncle Enzo said I should keep secrets better. That big boys don't tattle." He looked up at Elena with those dark, too old eyes. "But it felt wrong. Is that weird?" "No, sweetheart." Elena crouched down to his level. "That's called instinct, and you should always trust it." She needed to tell Damiano, but carefully. Mateo had just opened up. She couldn't betray that trust by immediately running to his father. Later that night, after the boys were asleep and the house had gone quiet, Elena found herself restless. She wandered down to the kitchen for tea and found Damiano already there, standing by the window with a glass of whiskey. He didn't turn when she entered. "Can't sleep?" "Too many thoughts." Elena filled the kettle. "You?" "I don't sleep much. Haven't in years." They stood in silence for a moment. Elena studied him in the dim light, still wearing a dress shirt despite the late hour, his shoulders tense like he was carrying the weight of the world. "Your men scare him," Elena said quietly. Damiano turned, his expression unreadable. "Excuse me?" Matteo, your security team, your guards, they terrify him more than the storm did. More than the men who attacked the diner. She met his eyes steadily. They treat him like a liability instead of a child. They're trained to. I know what they're trained to do. But he's 8 years old, Damiano. He's not a military asset. He's a little boy who just wants someone to smile at him without it looking like a threat assessment. The air between them went cold. Elena half expected him to throw her out, to remind her of her place. Instead, Damiano set down his glass very carefully. Explain. Elena blinked. What? You think my security approach is wrong? Fine. Tell me specifically what you've observed. This was a test. It had to be. But Elena had already jumped off this cliff. They don't look at him. They look around him, through him, like he's an object to guard rather than a person. They use military terminology, package, asset, primary. Vincent is the worst. He barks orders at the poor kid like he's training a soldier. Vincent has kept Matteo alive for 2 years. Alive isn't the same as living, Elena's voice softened. Your son is surviving, but he's not thriving. He's been walking on eggshells in his own home, afraid to make noise or ask questions or be a kid. Until you arrived. Until he met Lucas, Elena corrected. Until he had someone treat him like he was normal. Not precious or dangerous or breakable, just normal. Damiano studied her for a long moment. She expected anger, dismissal. Instead, he pulled out a chair.
Seat.
Elena sat warily. Damiano sat across from her, and for the first time, she saw past the cold exterior to something raw underneath. His mother died in a car bombing meant for me, Damiano said quietly. Matteo was in the car. He survived with a broken arm and nightmares that lasted months. I swore that day that nothing would ever touch him again, that I'd build walls so high and so strong that he'd be safe. But walls keep things out and things in, Elena said gently. He's safe, but he's also trapped. Better trapped and alive than free and dead. Is it? Elena leaned forward. Because from where I'm sitting, you've created a prison disguised as protection. And Matteo knows it. He feels it. Damiano's jaw tightened. You've been here 5 days. Don't presume to understand. I understand that boy laughed more today than he probably has in months. I understand that he's starting to talk, to open up, to be himself. And I understand that your security team looks at him and me like we're problems to solve instead of people to protect. Silence stretched between them. Elena held her breath, waiting for the explosion. It didn't come. Instead, Damiano rubbed his face tiredly. What would you suggest? Elena's surprise must have shown, because his mouth twitched. You're the first person who's spoken to me like this in years, he said. Everyone else tells me what they think I want to hear. You tell me what I need to hear.
So,
what would you change? Elena gathered her thoughts. Start with Vincent. Have him actually talk to Matteo like a human being. No more military jargon. Then rotate the guards, let Matteo see different faces, people who smile occasionally. And give him freedom to move around the house without someone breathing down his neck every second. That compromises his security. Everything's a compromise. You're choosing between a secure corpse and a living child, Elena softened her tone. I'm not saying remove protection. I'm saying make it less suffocating. Damiano was quiet for a long time. Then, there's a gym in the East Wing. Matteo used to love it, climbing walls, obstacle courses. I shut it down after the incident. Too many variables. Open it back up. Let the boys play there. Let them be kids. You're asking me to lower my guard. I'm asking you to trust that safety and happiness aren't mutually exclusive. Elena met his eyes. Your son needs both. Right now, he only has 1 inch. Damiano stood, pacing to the window. When he spoke again, his voice was rough. If something happens to him, because I listened to you, then you'll kill me, Elena finished calmly. I know. But nothing's going to happen because I'm not asking you to make him vulnerable. I'm asking you to make him strong. Damiano turned, and something in his expression had shifted. Respect, maybe. Or the beginning of trust. The gym opens tomorrow, he said. And I'll speak with Vincent. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, he picked up his whiskey. This world doesn't reward kindness, Elena. It punishes it. Then maybe, Elena said, standing. It's time someone changed the rules. She left him there in the darkness, and didn't see the way he watched her go. Like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. Or a risk he couldn't quite bring himself to eliminate. The call came at 2:47 a.m. Elena jerked awake to pounding on her door. Vincent's voice urgent. Ms. Martinez, we need you downstairs.
Now.
She threw on a robe and checked Lucas, still asleep, peaceful. She locked his door from the outside, a precaution Vincent had insisted on, and hurried downstairs. The security office was chaos. Monitors showing camera feeds, men shouting coordinates, Vincent barking orders into a radio. And in the center of it all, Damiano, perfectly still, watching a screen with eyes like winter ice. What happened? Elena asked. Damiano didn't turn. Look. On the monitor, her old apartment building was lit up like Christmas. Police lights, fire trucks, forensic vans. Her floor was cordoned off with yellow tape. They hit your apartment 2 hours ago, Vincent said. 4 men, armed with automatics. Kicked in the door, swept every room. When they found it empty, they trashed it looking for information. Where you went, who you're with. Elena's knees went weak. She grabbed the desk for support. The neighbors. Mrs. Chen called 911 when she heard gunfire. Police arrived in 6 minutes. The attackers were already gone. Vincent pulled up another screen. We caught them on street cameras 3 blocks away. Calabrese family confirmed. Elena stared at the wreckage of her home on the screen. Her couch torn apart. Lucas's drawings scattered on the floor. Everything she owned destroyed. They're escalating, Damiano said quietly. His voice was calm, but Elena could see the rage simmering beneath. They wanted to confirm you were gone. Now they know you're under my protection. So what now? Elena asked. Damiano turned to face her, and she took an involuntary step back. She'd seen him dangerous before, but this was different. This was personal. Now, he said, I send a message. He was gone in 5 minutes, him, Vincent, and 8 other men, armed and moving with lethal purpose. Mrs. Castellano appeared to guide Elena back upstairs. Don't wait up, the older woman said, her face grim. When Mr. Costa delivers messages, he takes his time. Elena couldn't sleep. She sat in the living room, watching the clock.
3 Uhr nachts.
4 a.m.
5 Uhr morgens.
Her imagination filled in the blanks. Gunfire, blood, bodies. She never thought she'd be the kind of person who'd wait for a mobster to come home from killing people. But here she was. At 5:47 a.m., she heard vehicles in the courtyard. Elena moved to the window and watched Damiano emerge from an SUV. Even from a distance, she could see the blood on his white shirt.
Fresh. Dark.
Still wet. Her stomach turned, but she didn't look away. Damiano walked into the house like he was returning from a business meeting. Elena heard his footsteps on the stairs, steady and unhurried. She should go back to her room. Should pretend she hadn't been waiting. Instead, she grabbed a towel from the bathroom and stood in the hallway. Damiano stopped when he saw her. Blood spattered his face, his hands, his clothes. His knuckles were split and raw. He looked like something out of a nightmare, except his eyes were clear, focused, and completely unbothered by the carnage he wore. You should be asleep, he said. Elena held out the towel. You're bleeding on the marble. Mrs. Castellano will have a fit. For a moment, Damiano just stared at her. She could feel him waiting for her reaction. Fear, revulsion, horror. The things normal people felt when confronted with evidence of violence. But Elena had worked diners for 7 years. She'd cleaned up every bodily fluid imaginable, had dealt with drunks and addicts and men who thought waitresses were fair game. Blood didn't scare her. What scared her was helplessness. And right now, watching this dangerous man stand in front of her covered in someone else's blood because they'd threatened her home, Elena felt the opposite of helpless. Don't get it on the rug, she added. That looks expensive. Something happened to Damiano's face. The cold mask cracked. His mouth twitched. Then, incredibly, he laughed. Not a polite chuckle or a dark snort. A real laugh, rough and surprised, like it had been dragged out of him against his will. You're serious, he said, taking the towel. I'm always serious about rugs. Elena leaned against the wall. Did you handle it? The men who destroyed your apartment are being handled. He wiped blood from his hands methodically. The Calabrese family will find pieces of them delivered to their warehouse by morning. With a note. Elena should be horrified. Should lecture him about violence and morality and the value of human life. Instead, she found herself asking, what did the note say? Damiano's eyes met hers, dark and unreadable. Touch what's mine again, and I'll burn your entire operation to the ground. What's yours? Elena repeated softly. You and Matteo. Under my roof means under my protection. The Calabrese broke that rule. He dropped the bloodied towel on a side table. They won't make that mistake twice. They stood in the pre-dawn quiet, and Elena realized something fundamental had shifted between them. She wasn't just a responsibility anymore. Wasn't just the woman who'd saved his son. She was someone Damiano Costa had claimed, protected, avenged. And the terrifying part was how safe that made her feel. You don't look afraid, Damiano observed. Should I be? Most people are. Most people see this. He gestured to the blood, and they run. I'm not most people, Elena pushed off the wall. And you're not the scariest thing I've dealt with. Try being a single mom with $50 to your name and a son who needs medicine. That's terrifying. This. She nodded at his bloody clothes. This is just Tuesday. Damiano stared at her like she was speaking a foreign language. Then his mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile, but was close. You're either the bravest woman I've ever met, he said, or the craziest. Can it be both? This time when he laughed, it was easier, natural. The sound of ice beginning to thaw. Get some sleep, Elena said. You look like hell. I feel like it. She started toward her room, then paused. Damiano? Thank you. For. You know. The message. They threatened you. They threatened Matteo by proxy. His voice dropped. Dangerous again. I protect what's mine. Always. Elena nodded and walked away, feeling his eyes on her back the whole time. Behind her, Damiano stood in the hallway, holding a bloodied towel, and tried to remember the last time someone had treated him like a person instead of a weapon. Tried to remember when laughter had come so easily. He couldn't. And that realization unsettled him more than any rival, any threat, any war. Because Damiano Costa controlled his world through fear and power and calculated violence. But Elena Martinez, with her stubborn kindness and her impossible courage and her complete refusal to be intimidated, was dismantling his carefully constructed walls one towel at a time. Vincent found him 20 minutes later, still standing in the hallway. Boss? You okay? Damiano looked at the bloodied towel in his hands, at the empty hallway where Elena had stood, at the first light of dawn creeping through the windows. I don't know, he said honestly. I really don't know. And for a man who'd built an empire on certainty, that uncertainty felt dangerously close to hope. The gym in the East Wing became the boys' kingdom. True to his word, Damiano had reopened it. Lucas and Matteo spent hours racing through obstacle courses, climbing padded walls, and inventing elaborate games involving pirates and secret agents. Their laughter echoed through halls that had been silent for too long. Elena watched from the observation window, her heart lighter than it had been in days. This was what childhood should look like. Joy without fear. Play without paranoia. You were right. She turned to find Damiano beside her. He looked less like a mob boss today, jeans and a black t-shirt, his guard slightly lowered. About what? Elena asked. The gym. The freedom. Look at him, Damiano's voice was soft, almost wondering. He's climbing. He hasn't climbed since before his mother died. The therapists tried for months. You managed it in 2 days. It's not me. It's Lucas. Kids heal other kids sometimes. They watched in comfortable silence. Mateo reached the top of the climbing wall and rang the victory bell, Lucas cheering below. Uncle Enzo always said climbing was dangerous. Mateo called down. That I shouldn't do it because I might fall and hurt myself. Elena felt Damiano tense beside her. Uncle Enzo says lots of things, Mateo continued, climbing down carefully. He says Papa is too soft sometimes. That's weird, right? Papa's not soft. Elena's instincts started screaming. She glanced at Damiano. His face had gone completely still, the way it did before violence. Mateo, Elena called through the intercom, keeping her voice light. Why don't you and Lucas take a snack break? I made those cookies you like. The boys raced off toward the kitchen, and Elena turned to Damiano. He mentioned Enzo before, she said quietly. A few days ago. Said he overheard him making strange phone calls at night, talking about moving things. Damiano's jaw tightened. When? Day 5. I didn't think much of it then, but combined with what he just said, Elena trailed off. You should talk to him. Really talk to him. Not as his father, but as someone who'll listen. If Enzo is... Damiano stopped himself. I need to know exactly what Mateo heard. Then let me help. He trusts me. Let me draw it out of him gently, and you listen. If you interrogate him, he'll shut down. Damiano studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. Tonight. After Lucas is asleep. That evening, Elena found Mateo in the library, a room lined with books he was finally allowed to touch. He sat in an oversized chair, looking small and young. Hey, sweetheart. Elena settled beside him. Can we talk? Mateo looked up from his book about dragons. Did I do something wrong?
No, baby.
Nothing like that. Elena chose her words carefully. Remember when you told me about Uncle Enzo's phone calls? The ones at night. Mateo's face clouded. I wasn't supposed to hear those. I know. But sometimes we hear things, and that's okay. Can you tell me more about them? It's important. Behind the bookshelf, unseen, Damiano stood perfectly still. Mateo picked at his book's cover. I couldn't sleep one night. A few weeks ago, before the bad men came. I went to find Papa, but his office door was closed. I heard Uncle Enzo inside, talking on the phone. What was he saying? He was angry. He said, Mateo's voice dropped to a whisper. He said Papa was getting weak, that he cared too much about me, and it made him vulnerable. He said something about the boy being a liability. Elena's heart sank. Did he say anything else? He said he had a plan, that he'd talked to someone about making it look like the Calabrese family did something bad. Then Papa would retaliate, and in the chaos, Uncle Enzo would. Mateo's eyes filled with tears. I didn't understand it all, but he said my name, and he said eliminate the problem. Elena pulled him into her arms. Oh, honey. That must have been so scary. I wanted to tell Papa, but Uncle Enzo saw me at the door. He smiled that weird smile and said good boys keep family secrets. That Papa had enough to worry about without me causing more problems. Mateo's voice cracked. Did I cause this? The men at the diner. Was that because of what Uncle Enzo said? No. Damiano stepped out from behind the shelf, and Mateo jumped. None of this is your fault, Mateo. None of it. He crossed the room in 3 strides and knelt in front of his son, taking his small hands in his larger ones. I'm sorry, Mateo whispered. I should have told you sooner, but I was scared. You did nothing wrong. Enzo lied to you. He made you doubt yourself when you should have trusted your instincts. Damiano's voice was raw. You're the bravest person I know. Do you understand? What you just told me. That took real courage. But Uncle Enzo wanted to hurt me? Yes, Damiano wouldn't lie to him. He betrayed our family. Betrayed you. That night at the diner, he arranged it. He gave those men your location, your security details. He wanted you gone so he could take control. Mateo's tears spilled over. Why? Because power makes people do terrible things. But he failed, Mateo. Because Elena found you first. She saved you before his plan could work. Matteo turned to Elena, his face crumpling. She pulled him close, feeling his small body shake with sobs. Over his head, her eyes met Damiano's. The look he gave her was complex, gratitude, respect, and something deeper she couldn't name. Something that made her breath catch. What happens now? Elena asked quietly.
Now.
Damiano's voice went cold. Now I deal with a traitor. He stood, kissed Matteo's head, and left the library. Elena could hear him in the hallway, his voice sharp as he called Vincent. Bring Enzo to me.
Now.
And I want every communication he's made in the last month pulled. Every phone call, every email, every text. I want to know everyone he's spoken to. Elena held Matteo as his tears slowed. You're safe now, she whispered. Your papa won't let anyone hurt you. But what if there are others? What if Uncle Enzo told other people secrets? Elena's stomach dropped. He was right. If Enzo had betrayed them once, he'd have contingencies. Allies. Escape plans. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Later, after Matteo finally fell asleep in her arms and she'd carried him to his bed, Elena found Damiano in his office. He stood at the window, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand. You saved more than my son that night, he said without turning. You saved everything. If Enzo's plan had worked, if Matteo had died and I'd retaliated against the Calabrese, there would have been a war. My empire would have fractured. Enzo would have stepped in, consolidated power, and I'd have been too destroyed by grief to see it coming. But it didn't happen. Because you were there, Damiano turned, and Elena saw something she'd never seen before in his eyes. Vulnerability. You walked into my world by accident and changed everything. Do you understand that? You're not a bystander anymore, Elena. You're the reason my son is alive. The reason my empire stands. The reason I still have something worth fighting for. The weight of his words settled over her like a blanket.
Heavy. Warm.
Dangerous. What are you going to do? She asked. Damiano's expression hardened. What I should have done years ago. Clean house. And anyone who stood with Enzo against my family will pay the price. Elena should be horrified. Should argue for mercy or justice or some moral high ground. But she thought of Matteo, terrified and crying. Of Lucas, sleeping peacefully only because she'd made impossible choices. Good, she said simply. Damiano smiled, dark and cold. You're becoming dangerous, Elena Martinez. Maybe, she said, turning to leave. Or maybe I already was. You just didn't notice. As she walked away, Damiano stood in the darkness and realized something terrifying. He was beginning to trust her. More than that, he was beginning to need her. And in his world, need was the most dangerous weapon of all. Enzo Romano knew he was running out of time. He'd been Damiano's consigliera for 12 years, his right hand, his trusted advisor. But trust was a currency that could be spent only once. And Damiano was asking questions now, pulling phone records, watching everyone with suspicious eyes. The boy had talked. Enzo had seen it in Damiano's face at breakfast, the cold calculation, the barely contained fury. It was only a matter of hours before the evidence trail led back to him. Unless he changed the narrative first. At 10 a.m., while the household buzzed with morning routines, Enzo made his way to the garage. Elena's Honda sat in the corner, still battered from the diner escape, but functional. The security team barely glanced at him. He was family. Trusted. Idiots. Enzo crouched beside the rear wheel well and placed a small GPS tracker deep inside the frame. Military grade. Untraceable to him. Then he pulled out his phone and sent an encrypted message to his contact in the Calabrese family. Costa moving high-value targets today. 2 p.m. Route attached. Woman is the key. Take her, you take everything. Then he added the tracker's coordinates and Elena's photo. The perfect frame. When the ambush happened, when Elena's tracker led them straight into danger, Damiano would believe she'd been a plant all along. A Calabrese spy who'd infiltrated his home, gained his trust, poisoned his mind against his loyal consigliere. And in the chaos that followed, Enzo would step in. The only one Damiano could still trust. The one who'd warned him about bringing civilians inside. By nightfall, Elena Martinez would be dead, and Enzo would have his empire back. He left the garage smiling. At 1:30 p.m., Vincent knocked on Elena's door. Mr. Costa wants you, and the boys moved to the safe house across town. Just for a few hours while we sweep the property for surveillance devices.
Elena frowned.
Is something wrong? Precaution. We do this quarterly, but with recent events, the boss wants you somewhere secure during the sweep. Vincent's face was neutral, professional. We leave in 15 minutes. Elena gathered the boys quickly. Lucas was excited. An adventure. Matteo was quieter, more anxious. He'd been clingy since revealing Enzo's betrayal, barely letting Elena out of his sight. It's okay. Elena reassured him in the car. Just a quick trip. We'll be back before dinner. They rode in a 3-vehicle convoy, one SUV in front, theirs in the middle, one behind. Professional. Secure. Elena tried to relax, but something felt off. Maybe it was Matteo's tension bleeding into her, or maybe it was her own instinct screaming. They were 20 minutes into the drive when it happened. The lead SUV exploded. Not a car accident. An actual explosion. Fire and metal and the concussive blast that made Elena's ears ring. Their driver swerved hard, trying to avoid the wreckage, and gunfire erupted from the buildings on both sides. Get down. Vincent screamed from the front seat. Down, down, down. Elena threw herself over both boys, covering them with her body. Bullets shredded the windows. Glass rained down. Lucas was screaming, Matteo was frozen in terror, and Elena could only hold them tighter and pray. Their SUV lurched forward, the driver accelerating through the ambush. More gunfire. The rear vehicle returned fire, buying them seconds. The driver took a hard right into an alley, tires screaming. They knew the route. Vincent snarled into his radio. They knew exactly where we'd be. How the hell? Another explosion.
Closer this time.
Their SUV rocked, slammed into a wall. The engine died. Out. Vincent kicked open his door. Move, move. Elena grabbed both boys and ran. Vincent and 2 other guards surrounded them, weapons drawn, scanning for threats. They ducked into a loading dock, using the concrete as cover. We've got hostiles on all sides, one guard reported. At least 12, maybe more. The safe house. Elena gasped. Compromised. They knew we were coming. Vincent's face was granite. Someone leaked our route. He pulled out a handheld scanner and started sweeping. For bugs, Elena realized. For tracking devices. The scanner beeped. Loud and insistent. Vincent's eyes went cold. It's coming from Ms. Martinez, your purse.
What?
No, I don't. But Vincent was already dumping her bag. Wallet, phone, keys clattered out. The beeping intensified. He pulled out her car keys, held the scanner close. Not the keys. The car. Vincent's voice was deadly quiet. He pulled up a tracking app on his phone, entered a frequency. A red appeared on the map. GPS tracker. Hidden in your Honda. Broadcasting our location in real time. Elena's blood ran cold. I didn't put that there. I swear. I know. Vincent was already on the radio. Boss, we've got a problem. Major problem. Someone planted a tracker on Ms. Martinez's vehicle. Fed our route to the Calabrese. This was an inside job. Through the radio, Damiano's voice came through, cold as death. Who had access to her car? Vincent's eyes narrowed. Everyone on the security team. The house staff.
And he paused.
Enzo. I saw him near the garage this morning. Thought he was doing his usual inspection. Silence on the other end. Then, get them home.
Now.
Whatever it takes. The next 10 minutes were chaos. Vincent coordinated with backup teams, using side streets and back alleys to avoid the ambush points. They switched vehicles twice, using decoys to throw off pursuit. By the time they reached the estate, Elena was shaking. Both boys were pale and silent, shock settling in. Damiano met them at the door, and Matteo ran straight into his arms.
Papa, he sobbed.
They tried to kill us again. I know. Damiano held him tight, but his eyes were on Elena. Are you hurt?
No.
Just scared. Elena set Lucas down, her legs barely holding her. Damiano, I didn't. I know you didn't plant that tracker, his voice was certain. But someone did. Someone who wanted you to look like a traitor. Someone who wanted me to doubt you. Vincent stepped forward. Boss, the tracker was high-grade military equipment. The kind we use. And the leak about the route, only 6 people knew we were moving them. Your inner circle. Where's Enzo? Damiano asked quietly. His office. He's been there all afternoon. Claimed he had paperwork. Damiano handed Matteo to Elena. Take the boys upstairs. Lock the doors. Don't open them for anyone but me or Vincent. What are you going to do? What I should have done the moment Matteo told me the truth. Damiano's face was carved from stone. End this. Tonight. Elena wanted to argue, to find some moral high ground. But she'd just watched men try to kill her and 2 innocent children. She'd felt Lucas trembling in her arms, heard Matteo's sobs. Make sure he can't hurt anyone else, she said quietly. Damiano's smile was terrible and beautiful. Count on it. As Elena led the boys upstairs, she heard Damiano gathering his men. Heard the click of weapons being loaded. Heard Vincent saying, we do this quiet or loud? And Damiano's response, loud. I want everyone to hear what happens to traitors in my house. Elena locked the doors, held both boys close, and waited for the sound of justice, brutal, bloody, and final, to echo through the fortress. In his office, Enzo saw the armed men approaching through his security monitor. And he realized he'd made one fatal miscalculation. He'd assumed Damiano's weakness was love. But love wasn't weakness. It was the most dangerous weapon of all. You want me to be bait? Elena stood in Damiano's office at midnight, both boys finally asleep upstairs. I wanted to help me catch a rat. Damiano spread a map across his desk. Enzo thinks his ambush failed because we got lucky. He doesn't know we found the tracker, which means he still thinks he has the upper hand. Vincent stood beside him, arms crossed. We announce a relocation. Say we're moving you and Matteo to a secure location out of state. Enzo will leak it to his Calabrese contacts. They'll set up another ambush. Except we won't actually be there, Elena said, understanding.
Exactly.
Decoy convoy. Mannequins in the vehicles. Remote drivers. When they attack, we'll have proof of Enzo's betrayal, and we'll capture his allies in the process. And Enzo. Damiano's smile was cold. Will be invited to witness the departure with the entire inner circle. When his allies attack the decoy, he'll be standing right next to me. Nowhere to run. Nowhere to hide. Elena should say no. Should refuse to be part of an elaborate trap that would end in violence and death. But she thought of the bullets tearing through the SUV, of Lucas's terrified screams, of Matteo's small body shaking with sobs. What do you need me to do? The plan went into motion at dawn. Elena played her part perfectly. She packed bags in full view of the household staff, made phone calls about starting fresh somewhere safe, and discussed schools with Mrs. Castellano loud enough for passing guards to hear. By noon, the entire estate knew Elena and Matteo were leaving. Tonight. Under cover of darkness. Enzo took the bait. Vincent's surveillance team caught him in the garden, phone to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian. By 3 p.m., encrypted communications were flying between the estate and a Calabrese safe house across town. They were coming. At 8 p.m., the household gathered in the courtyard, a formal send-off. Damiano's entire inner circle stood in the rain, lieutenants, captains, soldiers. And at Damiano's right hand, as always, stood Enzo. Bit dramatic for a simple relocation, Enzo remarked, his face carefully neutral. Elena saved my son, Damiano said. She deserves a proper goodbye. 3 black SUVs pulled into the courtyard. Elena emerged from the house holding Mateo's hand, except it wasn't Mateo. It was Lucas, wearing Mateo's jacket, his face obscured by a hood. Elena's heart pounded as she played her role. She hugged Mrs. Castellano, shook hands with Vincent, and approached Damiano. In that moment, their eyes met and she saw it, absolute trust. "Thank you," she said, her voice carrying, "for everything." "Stay safe," Damiano replied. Then, quieter. "Get inside." 3 minutes. Elena and Lucas climbed into the middle SUV.
The doors closed.
The convoy pulled away, driving toward the front gates. Behind them, Enzo checked his watch. Any moment now. The gates opened. The convoy drove through. 1 mile. 2 miles. The men in the courtyard waited in the rain, watching the SUV's taillights disappear. Then, in the distance, gunfire. Explosions lit up the night sky. The sound carried back to the estate. Automatic weapons, the crump of grenades, the chaos of an ambush. Enzo's face flickered, just for a second, with satisfaction. "Contact the convoy," Damiano ordered, his voice sharp. "Now." Vincent lifted his radio.
Static.
More gunfire. Then silence. "Boss, we've lost contact. Multiple hostiles. The vehicles are destroyed," Damiano finished. He turned slowly to face Enzo. "All 3 vehicles. Just like you planned." Enzo's face went carefully blank. "Sir, I don't understand." "Vincent, show him." Vincent pulled out a tablet. On screen, drone footage showed the ambush. 12 men attacking 3 empty SUVs. The vehicles exploded, and the attackers cheered. Then, armored trucks surrounded them from all sides. Damiano's real security team, hidden and waiting. The Calabrese soldiers were captured in under 2 minutes. "Remote-controlled vehicles," Damiano said conversationally. "Mannequins for passengers." "No one was ever in those SUVs, Enzo. Except the rats you led straight into my trap." The courtyard went silent. Every man turned to stare at Enzo. "This is absurd," Enzo sputtered. "You think I think you've been betraying me for months. I think you arranged my son's kidnapping. I think you planted a tracker on Elena's car to make her look like a Calabrese plant. And I think you just confirmed all of it by showing satisfaction when you thought she was dead." Enzo's hand moved toward his jacket. 6 guns appeared, pointed at his head. "Don't," Vincent said quietly. From the house, Elena emerged, the real Elena, with the real Mateo holding her hand. Both safe. Both alive. Enzo's face went white. "You failed," Damiano said. "You tried to take everything from me and you failed. Because you underestimated her. You thought she was just some civilian. Just a weakness to exploit." "She is weak," Enzo spat, his composure cracking. "You've gone soft, Damiano. Bringing civilians into our world. Letting children influence your decisions. Your father would be ashamed. My father is dead. Killed by men he trusted." Damiano stepped closer. "I won't make his mistake." He gestured to Mateo. Tell everyone what you heard." Mateo's voice was small but steady, his hand tight in Elena's. "Uncle Enzo talked on the phone about hurting me. He said Papa cared too much and it made him weak. He said I was a liability and he'd make it look like the Calabrese family did it so Papa would start a war." Murmurs rippled through the assembled men.
Shock.
Anger. Betrayal. Lies. Enzo said desperately. "The boy is mistaken." "We have the phone records," Vincent said. "Every call you made to Calabrese contacts. Every encrypted message. You're done, Enzo." Enzo looked around at the circle of hostile faces. Men he'd worked with for years, now looking at him like the traitor he was. His hand moved fast, grabbing for his gun. Damiano was faster. The shot echoed across the courtyard. Enzo stumbled back, clutching his shoulder. Before he could fall, Damiano grabbed him by the throat. "You tried to kill my son," Damiano said, his voice deadly calm. "You betrayed my family. You made a child doubt himself, made him afraid in his own home. For that, there's only one sentence. Please, Enzo gasped. Damiano, please, we're family. Family doesn't betray family. Damiano raised his gun. Elena pulled Matteo close, covering his eyes, but Matteo pushed her hand away. I want to see, he whispered. I need to know, he can't hurt us anymore. So Elena stood beside him, her hand in his, and watched as Damiano executed the man who tried to destroy them all. The second shot was final. Enzo crumpled to the wet ground, rain washing blood across the courtyard stones. No one moved. No one spoke. Then Damiano turned to his assembled men, guns still smoking in his hand. This is what happens to traitors in my house. This is what happens when you threaten my family. Spread the word. To the Calabrese, to every rival, to anyone who thinks I've gone soft, his voice carried like thunder. I'm not weak. I'm more dangerous than I've ever been. Because now I have something worth protecting. His eyes found Elena and Matteo. And I'll burn this entire city down before I let anyone take it from me. The men nodded, fists over hearts. A pledge. A promise. Justice had been served in blood and rain. And the Costa Empire stood stronger for it. The morning after Enzo's execution, Elena woke to find Mrs. Castellano brewing coffee in her sitting room. I thought you might need this, the older woman said, her voice softer than Elena had ever heard it. Yesterday was difficult. Elena accepted the cup, still processing. Mrs. Castellano had barely spoken to her in 10 days. Now she stood here offering comfort like they were old friends. Thank you. I owe you an apology, Ms. Martinez. Mrs. Castellano sat in the chair across from her. I judged you unfairly. Saw you as an intruder, a risk. But you saved Master Matteo twice, once from assassins, and once from a traitor we trusted like family.
I was wrong about you.
Elena didn't know what to say. I just did what anyone would.
No.
You did what we couldn't. You saw the danger when we were blind to it. You trusted your instincts when we trusted protocol. The older woman's eyes were bright with unshed tears. That boy hasn't smiled in 2 years. Now he laughs every day. That's because of you. After Mrs. Castellano left, Elena checked on the boys. They were in Matteo's room, building with Legos, their voices soft but steady. Processing trauma the only way children could, by returning to normal, bit by bit. Mom? Lucas looked up. Is it really over? The bad stuff. Elena knelt beside them. The person who is causing problems is gone. Your dad made sure of that. Papa said Uncle Enzo made bad choices. Matteo added quietly. That sometimes people you trust hurt you, but that doesn't mean everyone will. Elena's chest tightened. Such heavy wisdom for an 8-year-old. That's right. And you have people around you now who will always keep you safe. Your papa, me, Lucas, Vincent. We're your real family. Matteo nodded, then returned to his Legos. He was coping, healing slowly. That's all anyone could ask. The shift in the household was immediate and obvious. Guards nodded respectfully when Elena passed. Kitchen staff asked her preferences for meals. When she walked into a room, conversations didn't stop. They included her. That afternoon, Vincent found her in the garden while the boys played. The men want me to thank you, he said without preamble, for protecting the boss's son, for helping root out the traitor.
You have their respect now.
That's rare for civilians. I'm not trying to be part of your world, Vincent. Maybe not. But you're in it anyway. And you're good at it, reading people, seeing threats, staying calm under pressure. The boss sees it too. As if summoned, Damiano appeared that evening at her door. Walk with me? They strolled through the grounds as twilight fell, guards maintaining discreet distances. The rain had stopped, leaving everything clean and new. The Calabrese family has requested a meeting, Damiano said. They want to negotiate peace after we captured their hit squad. Will you meet with them? I'm considering it, but I wanted your perspective first. Elena stopped walking. My perspective? Damiano, I'm not a strategist. I don't understand mob politics. You understand people. You saw through Enzo when my entire security team missed it. You knew Matteo was hiding something important. You read situations better than men I've worked with for years. He turned to face her. So, I'm asking, should I meet with them or eliminate them? The weight of the question settled over Elena. He was genuinely asking her opinion on whether to start a war. What do you want? She asked carefully. I want to protect Matteo. To give him a life that isn't constantly under siege. But I also can't show weakness. If I negotiate, rivals might see it as capitulation. Or, Elena said slowly, they might see it as strength. You've proven you can strike back hard. Enzo's body made that clear. Now prove you can be strategic. Meet with them. Set terms. Make it clear that you're choosing peace not from fear, but from power. Damiano studied her face. You think I should show mercy? I think you should show control. Mercy is just one form of it. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, admiration, something deeper. You're wasted as a waitress. Elena laughed. I'm a single mom who got lucky. Don't make me more than I am. You keep saying that. Keep diminishing what you've done. Damiano stepped closer. But you've changed everything, Elena. My son, my household, my perspective. You've made me question things I thought were absolute truths. Like what? Like whether power and family can coexist. Whether trust is always fatal. Whether someone like me deserves. He trailed off, then shook his head. Never mind. But Elena heard what he couldn't say. Whether someone like him deserved something normal. Something good. That night became the first of many. Damiano would appear at her door after the boys were asleep, and they'd talk. Sometimes in the library, sometimes in the garden, once in the kitchen over coffee at 2 a.m. He asked her opinion on security protocols. She asked him about running a business empire, legal or otherwise. He told her about his father, his rise to power, the loneliness of command. She told him about Lucas's father, about working 3 jobs, about the fear of failing her son. They were the most unlikely pair, a mob boss and a waitress, but in those quiet hours, they were just 2 people trying to figure out impossible situations. You make it look easy, Damiano said one night. Parenting. Loving unconditionally. I spend millions on security and still don't feel like Matteo's safe. You had nothing and somehow kept Lucas safe for 7 years. I had love. That's not nothing. In my world, love gets people killed. In mine, it's the only thing that keeps them alive. Damiano was quiet for a long time. He asked me today if you were staying forever. Matteo, he said, he hopes you never leave. Elena's breath caught. What did you tell him? That I hope the same thing. Damiano's eyes met hers in the dim light. Stay, Elena. Not because you have to. Not because it's safe. Stay because. Because we need you. Both of us. It wasn't a declaration. Wasn't romance or promises. It was simpler and more complicated than that. It was truth. I need to think, Elena whispered. I know. Take your time. But know this, you're not a guest anymore. You're not temporary. You're family. And in my world, family is forever. He left her then, standing in the library surrounded by books and moonlight and decisions that would change everything. Elena looked out at the fortress that had become her home, at the life she'd stumbled into by saving a boy in the rain. And she realized she'd been changed too. By this world, by these people, by the man who'd pointed a gun at her head and somehow become someone she trusted. The question wasn't whether she'd been changed. It was whether she'd accept what she'd become. Tomorrow, she'd have to decide. Tomorrow, she'd have to choose. Day 11 dawned gray and heavy with clouds. Elena found the envelope on her breakfast tray, thick, expensive paper with her name written in Damiano's precise handwriting. Inside was a cashier's check for $200,000, a deed to a house in a safe neighborhood upstate, legal documents guaranteeing her protection for life, and a letter, handwritten in ink. Elena, the Calabrese family has agreed to peace terms. The threat to you and your family is over. You're free to leave. The money is enough to start over, somewhere safe, somewhere normal. The house is in your name. My men will watch over you from a distance, but you'll never see them. You'll have your life back. You saved my son.
You saved me.
This is the least I can offer in return. The choice is yours. It always has been. Damiano. Elena's hands shook as she read it. Freedom. Safety. A normal life for Lucas. Away from guns and violence and men who solved problems with bullets. Everything she'd wanted when this nightmare started. So, why did it feel like her heart was breaking? Mom. Lucas appeared in the doorway, still in his pajamas. Are you okay? Elena folded the letter quickly. I'm fine, baby. Where's Mateo? Still sleeping. We stayed up late reading. Lucas climbed onto her lap. Mom, I like it here. Is that weird? I know it's not our home, but it feels like home. Elena held him close, breathing in his little boy smell. Why does it feel like home? Because Mateo's my best friend. And the house is big. And Mr. Costa told me I'm brave like you. Lucas looked up at her with those innocent eyes. Are we staying forever? Before Elena could answer, Mrs. Castellano appeared. Ms. Martinez, Mr. Costa requests your presence in the garden. When you're ready. The garden was damp from overnight rain, drops still clinging to rose petals and hanging from tree branches. Damiano stood by the fountain, hands in his pockets, looking younger somehow, more uncertain. You got my letter, he said. I did. Elena held the envelope. This is generous. More than generous. It's what you deserve. What you've earned. Damiano turned to face her. You didn't ask for this life. You stumbled into it by being kind. You shouldn't be trapped here because of that. Is that what I am? Trapped. Aren't you? His voice was soft. You sleep in a fortress. You're protected by armed guards. Your son plays with the heir to a criminal empire. That's not the life you chose.
Elena stepped closer.
You're right. I didn't choose this. But I also didn't choose for my son's father to abandon us. Didn't choose poverty or working doubles or eating ramen so Lucas could have real food. We don't always get to choose our circumstances, Damiano. We just choose what we do with them. Papa? A small voice interrupted. They both turned. Mateo stood at the garden entrance, his face pale and stricken. He'd heard everything. Are you making Elena leave? His voice cracked. Like everyone else leaves? Damiano knelt down. No one's making her do anything. I'm giving her a choice. But she'll go. Tears spilled down Mateo's cheeks. Everyone goes. Mama went. Uncle Enzo went. Everyone I love leaves or gets taken away, and now Elena will too because I'm. Elena caught him as he ran to her, sobbing into her shirt. Oh, sweetheart, no. This isn't about you. Don't leave, Mateo begged. Please don't leave. I'll be better, I'll be good, I won't cause problems. Stop, Elena pulled back to look at him. You're good. You're perfect exactly as you are. This has nothing to do with you, baby. Nothing. She looked up at Damiano and saw his face, raw with pain, watching his son break down. This man who'd built an empire, who controlled everything through power and fear, was helpless against an 8-year-old's grief. I built walls so no one could touch him, Damiano said quietly. So high and so strong that nothing could get through. I thought that was love. Protection. He moved closer to them. Then you walked in through the storm. You didn't break the walls. You made them irrelevant. You showed me that safety isn't the same as living. Elena stood, still holding Mateo. What are you saying? I'm saying don't leave because you feel obligated. Don't stay because you feel trapped. Damiano's eyes held hers. Stay because you want to. Because this strange family we've built, is worth choosing. Or take the money and go, and I'll respect that choice. But know that if you stay, it's not as a guest or an employee or someone under my protection. Then what? Elena whispered. As family. As the person who changed everything. As someone he stopped, seemed to struggle with words he'd probably never said. Someone I need. Someone we both need. Elena looked down at Mateo, still clinging to her. Thought of Lucas sleeping upstairs in a home where he laughed every day. Thought of the woman she'd been 11 days ago, exhausted, scared, alone. She wasn't that woman anymore. She'd faced down assassins and walked with monsters and somehow found light in the darkest places. And maybe that was the point. Maybe kindness wasn't about staying pure in perfect circumstances. Maybe it was about choosing compassion even when the world was complicated and messy and morally gray. I'm scared, Elena admitted, of this world, of what it means for Lucas, of what staying here makes me. It makes you brave, Damiano said. It makes you someone who chooses love over fear, who sees a frightened boy and doesn't look away, even when it costs everything. Elena took a breath. Then she handed him back the envelope. I don't want your money. I don't want a clean exit, she smiled through sudden tears. I want dinner at 6 every night with our boys. I want to argue with Mrs. Castellano about kitchen privileges. I want to watch terrible movies and build Lego cities and pretend we're a normal family even though we're absolutely not. Mateo's arms tightened around her. You're staying? I'm staying. Both of us are. The smile that broke across Mateo's face was pure sunshine. He threw himself at Damiano, and Elena saw tears in the mob boss's eyes as he held his son. Thank you, Damiano said to Elena over Mateo's head. For everything. For him. For us. Thank you for letting me stay. They stood in the rain-damp garden, a mafia boss, a waitress, and a boy who'd brought them together, and for the first time in 11 days, Elena felt certain. This was where she belonged. Not in spite of the darkness, but because of the light she could bring to it. 11 days ago, she'd saved a boy by the garbage. Today, she realized he'd saved her too. And together, they'd built something impossible, a family forged not in blood or obligation, but in choice. In kindness. In love.